Welcome to Wayward Movie Recaps.
This young man is an addict who spends his days doing nothing, just wandering aimlessly. One day he happens to pass by a restaurant and by chance sees his ex-girlfriend, the one who left him years ago. He notices her belly and seems to realize something. Right away he asks her to meet him behind the restaurant and directly questions her about the baby. Without hesitation, she confirms it's his. He's stunned and can't understand why she'd never told him before. Had he known, he says, he would have stepped up and taken responsibility. She had no intention of telling him because in her mind, a child didn't need to grow up with a drug-addicted father. These words made him feel ashamed. He couldn't face her anymore, even though he wanted to say something. She told him to stay away and then left without turning back. Feeling miserable, he went to a bar to drown his sorrows, but he eventually ran out of money and was kicked out by the bouncers. He heard others mocking him relentlessly. In a state of confusion, he didn't know where to go. Right then, he walked past an unlocked car. He sneaked into the car, intending to take some belongings with him, but he was recognized by two police officers. Confronted with the fate of being arrested for theft, he called his mother, who brought $1,000 to pay the fine so he could get out of jail. When he returned home, he didn't say anything right away. As he was about to go to sleep, his mother entered the room and threw a letter at him. In the letter, she expressed her desire to sever ties with Brendan and demanded that he leave the house by 7 o'clock in the evening. Upon seeing the amount of money enclosed in the letter, he grew even more furious with his mother. She stormed off, seemingly fed up with a series of bad things he had done in the past that had disappointed his family. A turning point in his life had come when he learned that his girlfriend had given birth. Silently, he went to the neonatal ward and looked at the moving baby inside. Suddenly, a sense of responsibility welled up within him, and it was from this moment that he decided to change his life. Just like that, Brendan left for a place he had worked hard to secure. It was a firefighter training facility. Brendan wanted to shed his rotten self to fulfill the responsibilities of a man, and that's why he had come here. A man named Clayton approached him to strike up a conversation. Brendan knew he was a tough case to deal with, but he still wanted to give it a shot. Clayton immediately dismissed his intention and said that being here was enough. At this point, team captain Eric called him into the interview room. The rest of the team didn't understand why the team captain was interviewing an addict. Eric directly asked when the last time Brendan had used drugs was. Brendan replied that he had been clean for 3 months. After reviewing Brendan's profile, Eric could see that Brendan had genuinely participated in a professional firefighting training course. Eric didn't understand why the young man in front of him had strayed so far off course and pondered for a moment. Eric wanted to know why Brendan wanted to change. Brendan admitted to having made many regrettable mistakes and wanting to give his daughter something he never had. These words convinced Eric to give Brendan a chance. The teammates were about to embark on a mountain climbing training, so Eric asked the team to help Brendan find suitable shoes if he could commit to the training. With the mountain climbing training underway shortly after the long-distance march, Brendan, with his frail and gaunt figure, struggled to fit in. Having been an addict for many years, he couldn't keep from feeling nauseous during the run. While the team was running, Deputy Jesse asked Team Captain Eric why they were bringing in an addict, especially when their team was already considered outstanding. Eric, after hearing this, didn't explain much, keeping his thoughts to himself. He believed that a responsible father might not be so bad after all, but this thought caused Eric to be slapped in the face when the team had completed a lap and was preparing to descend from the mountain. And Brendan was still standing in the same spot. No one paid attention to him. He didn't say anything but started running directly past Eric, leaving him alone there. Time had passed, and it was already late afternoon with no sign of Brendan, making Eric think that he couldn't handle it and decided to leave. Just as everyone was about to leave without waiting any longer, Brendan suddenly appeared not too far away. Watching him stumble and persistently run back to the base as if he wanted to prove that he was serious about his life, he ran up to Eric and took out his phone. He showed Eric a photo taken on the mountain peak. Eric kept his promise and agreed to let Brendan join the firefighting team. At this point, Jesse also handed Brendan a bottle of water. This action demonstrated their acceptance of a new member into the team. Jesse advised him to rest well because the bigger challenges lay ahead. However, Brendan didn't immediately head home. Instead, he stopped by a supermarket, carefully selecting a few things and then taking them to his ex-girlfriend's house. And just like that, Brendan became a part of the firefighting team. He persevered in firefighting training because he was a newcomer to the team. He not only had to master the techniques of building fire lines, but also had to remember the firefighting methods. Accompanied by unexpected inspections from Eric, this kept Brendan's mind constantly on edge, and as a newcomer, he was the one subjected to inspections most frequently. Eric asked Brendan about the 11th rule of firefighting law, but Brendan couldn't answer, resulting in the team having to do push-ups along with him. Naturally, there were team members who were quite frustrated, including Clayton. He was frustrated because Brendan's actions could negatively affect the entire team, and he taunted Brendan for a while. He even told Brendan to go find out if he was really the father of his child. These words pushed Brendan to his limit, and he couldn't hold back any longer. He decided to teach this rude person a lesson, but as his punch was about to land, Brendan hesitated because he knew that just one punch would cost him the chance to become a firefighter. After that, he stood up and moved to another location to continue with the push-up punishment. This action earned him the respect of his fellow teammates to some extent. Following Eric's guidance, they continued their training on self-protection skills. In the event of a major fire where they couldn't escape in time, they needed to wrap themselves in a fire shelter and face temperatures soaring up to 500 degrees. They had to bury their heads in the ground, and as long as they could breathe, they could survive. It felt like having 100 trains running through their heads, but even so, Eric didn't hope that his teammates would have to use this survival skill. While they were focused on training, an accident was about to happen on a hill near Porto. A large fire broke out, and Eric received an urgent notification to take the team there to fight the fire. This time, it was not only a rescue mission, but also an opportunity to evaluate if their team could become the pioneer team. As they flew to the location in a helicopter, the thick smoke covered the air. Brendan felt suffocated, and a sense of unease crept over him. But this was a situation that firefighters had to adapt to, and he would encounter it many times in the future. When they arrived at the location, Eric's plan for dealing with such a large fire area was to first burn all the easily combustible items to ensure that the fire wouldn't continue spreading dangerously to the town's residents. After they gave the order, teammates began to hold their guns and fire in the direction ahead, and Brendan was no exception. Due to his lack of experience, Clayton took the lead. Clayton aimed his gun towards the distant target, successfully igniting a fire point. Brendan attempted to mimic him, trying to throw it as far as possible. Brendan did well, and Clayton didn't forget to praise him. However, when the mission was nearing completion, Clayton inadvertently stepped on a beehive under a dry tree, causing the swarm of bees to immediately emerge. After a concerted effort by the whole team, they successfully extinguished the large fire, as predicted, and the two flames meeting allowed them to successfully put out the fire. That's how Brendan's team managed to completely extinguish a large fire. The next morning, the entire team set off on their way back, walking through the area that had been ravaged by the fire. Unfortunately, a tree unexpectedly toppled over, and luckily, Brendan was quick to pull him out in time. As they reminisced about the days of battling the fire together, they had forgotten all the previous unpleasantness and had truly become brothers. Not long after, they received good news at the base due to the success of their firefighting plan. They smoothly passed their evaluation, and as a reward, their team became pioneers in firefighting. It was a great achievement that put them at the forefront of the firefighting community, and they looked forward to more challenging missions in the future. Brendan brought some belongings to his girlfriend's house before he left. When he was about to depart, his girlfriend called him back. She had noticed a change in Brendan and wanted him to hold their daughter. She encouraged him to hold their daughter, and he did so with a sense of awkwardness. At that moment, he felt a happiness he had never experienced before. What he didn't regret was the possibility of being on the right path for the future, where he could be there for his daughter and his girlfriend. Not long after, the firefighting team received another challenging mission near the city of Prescott. Due to a severe fire caused by lightning strikes, Eric received the notification and quickly led the team there. The fire line had already been set up by the team, but the fire was spreading rapidly. Eric was somewhat concerned about the clouds on the hillside, as more clouds meant a more severe fire. So Eric immediately gave the order to burn the fire line. At this point, the whole team began to carry out their mission. Eric called Brendan aside, wanting to express some words that had been on his mind for a while. It turns out he had always wanted to talk about Brendan's transformation. The two had a short but heartfelt conversation. Subsequently, with the coordinated support of the entire team, the fire line was set ablaze. However, unexpectedly, a misdirected water hose aimed straight at the fire line that the team had marked for direct extinguishing. Witnessing this scene, Eric felt powerless and muttered into his radio. But by then, the fire line had become too wet to burn, rendering it impossible to ignite. The only option was to leave it there and move up the hillside. Thus, the fire line had to be re-established. At this point, Jesse called Brendan over because setting up the forward fire line required time, and during the wait, someone had to constantly monitor the fire and changing weather conditions to alert everyone. Brendan reluctantly took on the task. Of course, he was coerced into it. Brendan drove towards another hillside before leaving, and Clayton didn't forget to bid farewell, not realizing that it would be the last farewell he would hear from Clayton. Quickly, Brendan arrived on the other side of the hill, continuing to record monitoring results and promptly reporting them to Eric. Everything seemed under control when suddenly the wind direction abruptly changed, bringing the fire rapidly towards Brendan. Seeing this, Jesse immediately ordered him to evacuate. Brendan, despite his efforts, couldn't extinguish the fierce blaze quickly enough. He found himself surrounded by smoke, with thick, choking smoke enveloping the entire forest. Brendan's escape route was cut off by the fire, while Eric led the rest of the team to safety. They couldn't hear Brendan's response over the radio, which left everyone anxious. Fortunately, the rescue vehicle arrived in time to rescue Brendan successfully from the danger zone. After being rescued, Brendan reported to Eric, which put Eric at ease despite his limited communication skills. While evacuating, Eric received news that the fire had gone beyond control. Another rescue team had lost the fire line, leaving Eric feeling helpless as he observed his surroundings. He then decided to advance towards an escape route and retreated to an open field nearby. Brendan moved to the safe area as well, anxiously listening to the radio in the hope that everyone could make it back safely. Unfortunately, at this point, a storm was moving northward at an extremely high speed, signaling that the nearby area would be engulfed in flames. Indeed, the fire spread rapidly in that direction, heading towards a farm. Eric led the team to the vicinity of the farm, where he noticed a severe fire ahead and saw his teammates behind him. He felt uneasy about the situation, so he quickly turned the team back. He didn't want to witness another firestorm, not only encircling the team, but also advancing toward them at an incredibly fast pace. Eric urgently ordered the deployment of the fire shelter. Despite extensive training beforehand, they never expected to have to use them, as once they did, their lives depended solely on luck and divine intervention. At the same time, Eric sent an emergency broadcast over the radio, as water spraying from above was their only chance for safety. Unfortunately, the thick smoke obscured their exact location, so they missed the rescue point. The fire continued to advance towards them. In despair, Eric watched the wall of flames around them raging fiercely. The final command was to protect their lives, and his teammates quickly pulled out the fire shelters, constantly reciting the survival steps Eric had taught them before. In their hearts, they all understood what they were about to experience. As Eric had mentioned before, as long as they buried their faces beneath the ground, they could continue living. Nobody knew what the outcome would be as they completely buried themselves under the fire shelter, while the flames roared closer and closer. Brendan was waiting anxiously, hoping that his comrades would return. Unfortunately, the unwanted moment had arrived. The rescue plane continued to search for them in the scorched land. Finally, the rescue team located their position, and Brendan slowly made his way there. The gruesome sight left him stunned because all that remained were charred remains. When Brendan received the news that all of his teammates had sacrificed, he collapsed. He was filled with anger, pain, and bitterness, wondering why it wasn't him instead. The families received the news at the competition venue and knew that one team member had survived, but they didn't know who. They all hoped that the survivor would be their husband, son, or father. After a fierce struggle, Brendan entered the competition venue, despite others trying to stop him. His presence shattered everyone's hope. Looking at each family's despair, Brendan fell into deep thought for a while, and finally turned away. Perhaps only by accepting this cruel reality could he gather the courage to face life after. Many people didn't understand why he did it, but he was the one who truly suffered the most. The captain's wife unexpectedly came to him, understanding the ordeal this man was going through. She comforted Brendan, telling him to try to overcome the ordeal because everyone had given their all. The film ends here. Thank you for watching the video. Goodbye and see you in the next videos on the Recom Movie channel.